think it's working. Hi, guys. It's Elizabeth here with Rise Beautiful. And what I wanted to do today was sort of a reaction video on this lady that I really like her. And I had talked about this previously on a different video about, people who suffer from complex trauma to find her. Not only those kind of people, but people who know people who are suffering from complex trauma or uh, yeah, just anybody that wants to know about this issue, this plague on our society. uh, she is the perfect one to look for, and she happens to be Christian, so that's also rare because you know everybody wants to be politically correct, and she's right in the heart of where like or I like of the soul. So that's awesome. So here we are. We're looking at her. She is has a PhD. She's practicing. She's a practicing psychologist, an international speaker working with trauma survivors, caregivers, and clergy around the world. That's what I like about her. Also, is that she's also trains people and how to deal with this issue if they're doing any counseling. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And she's been doing this for 45 years. And there's a little post here on Twitter that she posted that I really liked. It says, "People who lose all their charity generally lose all their logic." And that's a quote by, it looks like G.K. Chesterton, Father Brown. So, yeah, so basically what I've been noticing is that uh like I had done a few nights ago, is like I was in sorrow and sharing my pain, and I noticed a lot of this other survivors are doing the same, and still it's hard to get people to listen to this or to understand because nobody wants to deal with this tragedy that's going on, this silent tragedy. Have to keep quiet about it. Um, so let's just go ahead and I hope to God this works because I did this last night, and I have a a lower price laptop, so it didn't uh, work at all. So I had to lower the resolution of my lab of everything, and so hopefully this will do it right this time. So all right, so we're just going to be, she just has these little snippet videos here where somebody's asking her some questions and she's responding to the questions, and then I'm going to respond to what she's saying. So let's see how that goes. All right, so the first one here is, how does complex trauma affect the victim's idea of both self and others? And please forgive me, I'm not wearing my glasses, so kind of hard to see. That's a good subject. How does complex trauma affect the victim's idea of both self and others? Very good subject. So let's see what she says here. This lady was sent from heaven. I'm telling you, God dropped her down here for us. Okay.
Complex trauma affects the victim's identity because if you are, again, a child marinated in trauma as you develop, you think of a small child, they're wondering who they are as they're small, and then they want to know who you are. And then they want to know who their peers are and how to play together and how to respond to authority and how to ask questions and be heard and understood. And what happens when there's complex trauma is the messages that are communicated to the child are, you are trash. You are not worthy.
Ooh. Yeah, that is so true. You are trash. That's what I've gotten my whole life, and then growing up, I knew how embarrassing and how gross it was. And so I spent a long time not even telling anyone. It's only been in the last like 6 years, and that has rendered me to be seclusive now. It's not only that the caregivers made us feel like trash, but now it's the world that's making us feel like we're trash and no good because of what other people have done to us.
Worthy of care. Nobody in your world can be trusted. You need to always be vigilant and look for danger. And nobody's ever going to love you.
That last part, nobody's gonna ever love you, you know? I don't know how many people have told me that. I Nobody cares, but nobody's ever gonna love you. And what the sad part about it is that it's like it's like their words made it come true. That programming makes it come true. So let's go to the next one here. How can I help a friend still suffering from childhood trauma? This is a good one. I would say stop. Stop telling us what we need to do or fix. Because I know all of us, most of us know that there's an issue going on here. And we're working hard to try to overcome this issue. So I say, just walk beside me and be my friend. Stop telling me, you know. Just avoid it a little bit. Sorry. I just ate something and then
You can help a friend suffering from childhood trauma by just being their friend, not their counselor, not the person who does the work that a counselor does. But so often I find that people encourage their friends to come in for counseling, or the church encourages them to come in for counseling, and it's like they drop them off at the door and they'll pick them back up when they're all better. But friends walking alongside partly help the victim do normal things, like go for a walk in the woods, or take an exercise class, or just self-care kinds of things they would never do alone, that remind them that they're more than their abuse. That's not their entire identity. And friends can be there late at night when you've had a nightmare and you don't know who to call, not to tell you the whole story, but just to bring comfort and to say that it matters. And so it is the honoring and the giving of dignity and the willing to walk to the dark places and hold their hand while they face the thing they're most afraid of.
Amen. Amen. You know, nobody wants to walk in those dark places with us. Nobody wants to share the burden, you know. So this makes me so emotional. And all right, so here we're gonna let's just go with this one first. What effects can childhood trauma have on a person's development? So let's just go ahead and just skip it a little bit.
When a child is marinated in trauma, a child is a developing person, and so they are malleable, which means they can be shaped.
Did we just listen to
And
this?
if you are being shaped by untrustworthy people, violent people, humiliating people, abusive people, those who are full of rage, it distorts the development of the human being and also teaches them a tremendous number of lies about who they are and their value and what relationships look like, and leaves huge gaps in understanding things like what love actually is, what it means to speak truth, what it means to be safe.
Amen to that, and especially to that safe part. That's one of the the things that we need the most of is to feel safe. To feel safe. That is like the most important thing. Um, let's see. All right, so here we're just gonna go through a little of these this little playlist, and I've already watched some of these because I was watching them last night, trying to make this video, but it didn't work out. But that's okay. Let's see. Let's just go with when is it dangerous for a person dealing with trauma to remain silent? Because this is like what I was talking about last night is that toggling between the ideas of am I doing a good thing because I'm on here publicly on YouTube. Granted, I don't have that many people viewing this, but I'm telling my story, and that story could be used against me. And then, of course, people judge you for what other people have done to you. You made to look bad, like you're defective. So, I mean, there's been videos that I've made, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to erase that. Like I toggle between, you know, when this story needs to come out. The people we all need to start, you know, talking about this publicly because it's a plague. It's a disgusting phenomenon happening, and all the children grow up to be adults, and then here we are, like with all these burdens to carry. So um I think why I want to just keep trying is because I'm thinking about the people that are suffering more than I'm thinking about my reputation and my sufferings. I think that's the answer.
Silence being physically
Sorry.
Silence is danger for trauma victims most of the time because it's like being physically wounded and ignoring it. It'll fester and it'll leak and it can get infected. And if you do that to a wound on your leg long enough, you lose the leg. Heart wounds are like that too. They can't be seen, so they're much easier to hide. And if they stay hidden and the story is never told, then all of the lies that have been taken in by the victim never have a different light shined on them. Mm-hmm.
Wow, right there. Right there, that right there. That's what I was going to a counseling here, and the guy wasn't trained in trauma or whatever, and um he'd basically say, "Oh, I'm tired of people, wanting to go back to their past. Just look forward." That's like you know, what are those words? Popular little words, or just intellectual, shallow, just thinking. And like what I wanted in my heart, and what all of us who are suffering want is that, yeah, I want to go back, all the way back, and I want to say it all, finally just release all of that story. And then I want, a professional to tell me you weren't wrong in this. You were, it wasn't your fault, like that is so, so freaking important. And at first I was like, I was wondering if the therapy that I'm doing is if is would be effective. I know it's not going to cure me because I don't nothing can cure you. I mean, I mean, it's a scar to your soul. It could be less demanding on your body when you start dealing with it, but it's never something that's, will be gone or could be forgotten. So, yeah, that is exactly, I mean, why all of us are like, like kind of screaming, but it's a double-edged sword because everybody runs away from it. They're like, nobody has time, nobody wants to deal with it. Um, that's, you know, it's a rare to find anybody that. who would just sit there and be your friend and just listen, have somebody understand, the pain that you're suffering. It's not like we're like, like this every day, but it's just like a cloud that's over us, that's lingering on us. It's not like every day I'm talking about this kind of deal. I'm doing it on here because this needs to come out. This needs to be exposed.
Never get to see, well, maybe that's really not who I am. So it's locked away and it's untouched, but just because it's silent doesn't mean it doesn't run the life. It can still run the life. One other point to that is silence is wise in trauma victims if there's nobody safe around. And victims are very vigilant about who's safe and who's not, and sometimes very slow to decide that someone is safe. But there are some systems, some church organizations, some people who would not be safe to tell. And so victims need to be wise about that. It takes great courage to tell, and they can talk themselves out of it completely if they want to, but it is also healthy to tell. So it produces a little bit of a tension for a victim.
Yeah. Let's just move on to the next one. Okay. Sorry, not these ones. I have them all like this. Let's go with I'm sorry. What mistakes do Christians frequently make in trying to help? And we will skip a little bit forward here to just save time.
The
Oops.
mistakes that we make as Christians is that we think that when somebody brings us a history of abuse, if we give them a verse, it will make them feel better. And
Or a shallow saying, get over it, to okay, I wouldn't like everybody knows the shadow saying, just don't worry, you. Well, now people are with me, people are saying you're just gonna have to accept the fact that you're gonna be single for the rest of your life. It's sad. It's sad. It's really sad. You're gonna have to accept the fact that you're not gonna have any other children. That basically they're telling me you're gonna have to accept the fact that nobody's gonna ever love you, Elizabeth, because you've had such a hard life that nobody wants to deal with you, and so you're not gonna have what you what you know that kind of life. You just live recluse all to yourself and stay away from everybody. That's basically what people are doing.
and actually, the verse may be something they desperately need to understand and take into their hearts. But if you've been abused for a long time, you don't have a file in your head for that verse. Mm-hmm. And again, that's why it's so important for a counselor and or the body of Christ to accurately represent the character of God for a while before those words will make any sense. The other thing that we sometimes do as Christians is we're so uncomfortable with the level of evil that we're hearing about,
Here we go.
or the level of damage that's been done, that we want to protect our own sense of safety in the world. We don't want to really know that these things happen to people. We want to think that if you do all the right things, then it turns out okay, and that there isn't really injustice or undeserved suffering. And so we throw platitudes at people. So someone can give us just a horrific story of maybe 10 years of childhood abuse, and we say, God works all things together for good to those who love him. And in doing so, we take care of ourselves rather than the victim, and we look like the perpetrator.
Yeah. I don't know how many times that's happened to me, and just people say so many things all the time, and you're just like, geez, man, this person doesn't even know. It's just, I guess they call them, you get triggered, and then, I mean, there's triggers of the things in the past, but then there's triggers in the present as well, with people being naive, ignorant, or innocent. But if you're a Christian, you know that Jesus Christ came down here from heaven. I mean, he was already living in heaven. He lowered himself and came in human form, and he sat here with us. And nobody around wants to do that. Not even Christian people want to do that for anybody. Hmm. Did I already do the shame one? Okay, let's just do the shame one now. Did I do the shame one? Thought I was gonna be better prepared now that I figured out how to just do this. Why do victims of abuse experience shame? Because it is shameful. No, because we were told we were shameful. We're told every day that we're shameful. We're told every day that we're not worthy. We're told every day that it doesn't matter. We're told every day that my people have it worse. Or I'm wondering, who the heck is the other people? I want to talk to them. See if we can talk it together. Heck, I'm sure they are struggling too with trying to find people that give a rat's butt.
Of abuse almost always feel shame. One of the reasons is that if it occurs to a child, any of us who have raised children know that they're quite egocentric. Mm-hmm. They think they're the center of the universe. And that's why a child, for example, whose parents are divorcing might think, Mommy and Daddy are getting a divorce, and if I'd been a good little boy, they would still be together. That's child thinking. And so the abuse is being processed by the child. And so the abuse is happening to me because I'm bad. And sometimes actually abusers will use that and tell the child, grandfather is doing this to you because you're bad and evil and you're making me do this bad thing. And so the shame of being a bad person is part of what they carry. It literally becomes their central identity.
Yeah. Shame, ooh. Guilt. I think shame is worse than guilt. Guilt is like something that you did and you feel bad about. The shame is like what somebody else did, or where everybody's throwing that onto you. Everybody's like gained up and they're shaming you. And Jesus was shamed, wasn't he? He was shamed, and I don't. He didn't let the shame affect him though. Jesus is something else. Why does sexual abuse have such a spiritual impact on its sufferers? Let's go for that one. I tell you, even if I've listened to these, it's like, well, because it's me in the core. Oops, did I just reverse that? Yes, I did. My bad. Because this
Abuse
is my life.
spiritually impacts because the messages that are communicated by sexual abuse are about the identity of the person who is being abused, the identity of the caregiver who is the abuser, and therefore the identity of God whom the caregiver represents. to the victim. Sexual abuse can be verbal, it can be visual, such as pornography, it can be physical, but it goes to the core of a person and who they are.
One thing that's different from me is you know, I I don't like I don't see God in a bad light because of what my parents did. I knew that my parents were not right. Like I always knew that about them, and that's probably another reason why, you know. So I'd search for God. Like I knew that he was the only way that I could live, I could survive, I could live. Even now, I know he's the only way. If I turn around and I go, you know, and start doing bad things and not caring, I know that my life is like it's almost, you know, it'll be just the devil will just take the last stabs and just defeat me. I know that's what I'm pretty much working with. That's why, you know, a lot of people don't like it, but I need to remain in God, in Christ, and remain a Christian. And you know, if I have a significant other, I want that person to be a Christian because to me, anything else is death at this point. I suffered for so long by myself that there's no other answer on how to get me to live a longer life.
And it, the message is the opposite of being a person created in the image of God who's of value and worth.
That's
What they
true.
are is someone to consume and use and feed off of. And
That's
so the
true.
things that God tells us about himself then make no sense. He says, I love you, I am a refuge, I am a shepherd. You can't process those concepts when you've been sexually abused.
Sometimes I go in and out of understanding that. You know, like a lot of times, you know, yeah, like she had said before, like, you know, God works all things for the greater good. That's a saying that somebody would say just to just basically tell you, oh, all your pain's not valid. You just need to be quiet and, you know, just conform. Um, all things work for the greater good. What was I talking about? I don't even know now. Um, what did she say? Oh no. Did I just have a brain fart? I
No
just had a brain
sense.
fart.
He says, I love you, I am a refuge, I am a shepherd. You can't process those concepts when you've been sexually abused.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it is hard because and then yeah, you feel I mean, we're all unworthy, but like I've been trained to be even be more unworthy. Like I'm the scum of the earth is like what my parents did, you know? So it's a true horrendous thing that people can do. They just want to tear your soul down. They just want to tear, you know, and it's not only my, you know, my parents and family, you know, then there was like an ex-boyfriend, my ex-husband, you know, it just keeps on going, you know, and that's why I'm like, man, I really need to figure this out. I need to figure what, you know, all the missing puzzle pieces, you know, who is safe people. And that's a video that I'm going to be working on later on. Um, but I'm starting like trying to start a little business. Uh, so I'm going to be focusing on that as well. But I want to make a video about how who are safe people, what are the safe people, because the boundaries have been crossed so much that we don't even know. And they come in wolves and sheep's clothing, and of course they always are going after the vulnerable ones. You know, so that's how the hunter hunts, right? They go for the children or they go for the weak, lame one, right? Let's just go ahead and let's go with this one and I'll go. How can God use his people to restore hope in victims of abuse? And then I'll do one more after this.
God uses his people in mighty ways for victims if they are willing to enter into the sewer with them.
Oh,
Just
this
as
is a
he
good
did
one.
for us. But we enter in and walk alongside and live before God in a way that accurately represents him and is the opposite of the lies that the victim has been taught, which means we must be trustworthy and faithful and patient and loving and all of the things that he is over time, so that the victim can begin to see that those things are actually real, and that that's not only something that honors them and now they matter, which is a new experience, but it actually tells them the truth about who God is.
One other thing here, that I think it maybe was in a totally different video that I'm not going to get into because it was too long. Where she was talking about how does the healing process start. And maybe I'll link that video. Well, the healing process starts where you're able to tell your story and safely, and then understand the differences between what was not your fault and with the things that were your fault later on in life because you didn't know. Well, I mean, you're walking blind. So, what am I talking about now? Knowing those differences. See, I got brain fog again. Sorry. I keep getting distracted by things. What was that? Just knowing. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna let that brain fart go. What? How can God's redeeming love change? Okay, let's just listen to this one and then one more. Oh yeah, yeah. Like, how do you heal? You tell your story, then you with a safe person, and then that person respects you and listens to you and doesn't judge you about it, and they treat you different than than what you're used to. You're used to getting abused. You're used to getting treated like crap. You're used to, saying that you're not even worth your life. Um, and if they treat you in the opposite way, then you start finally understanding, like, wow, I'm not all those things. If somebody's treating you that way different, you start seeing new things within yourself and realizing, all this crap was fake and wrong, and they did this to me on purpose just to tear me down. So that's how we start healing. But we need people, you know, I mean, we don't need to be outcasted for what other people have done to us. We don't need to, suffer alone. We don't need time, the grieving time or whatever. No, we need people to be here with us, with good intentions, not to just sit and even take more life away from us.
God's redeeming love can change a life scarred by abuse in miraculous ways. I've done this work for a long time, and I've watched it happen. I call it a front row seat to redemption. But the thing that is so ironic about it, and in many ways is still a mystery to me, is evidenced in the scripture in the Old Testament where God is talking about restoring Israel. And he talks about wooing her out of the wilderness. He goes into the wilderness to get her. And that in the valley of Achor, which means trouble, so in the valley of trouble or trauma, is the door of hope. And what I've come to see in working with victims is we want to come and get them out of the valley of trouble, and then they'll have hope. God goes and meets them in the valley of trouble. And in that meeting, there in that place, is actual hope and redemption. And I believe that the reason that happens is because in that place, God shows us himself as entering into the wilderness and taking trouble on himself. He too was betrayed. He too was abandoned. He too has been scarred. He was treated as refuse. And it is as victims begin to see him, first fleshed out by his body, and then in the person of Christ and his work on the cross, that's where the redemption comes.
See, that's why, you know, that's where I run to Jesus. Like this, I mean, he's awesome. There's nothing in the world that I see that's like Jesus Christ is, you know. And I wish there was, I wish there was more people like Jesus Christ. Ooh, it's so hard, guys. Okay, let's just do this last one and then we'll be done. And this one is, I'm not going to listen to it fully. I just want this one here for the validation of what should be done to these sexual, you know, molesters, pedophiles. Um, even like I I decided not to put mine in my pedophile in prison, but you know the family members and everybody is just, you know, forgive and forget, you know, and then you can't forget. I mean, I can forgive, but you know, you can just, you know, the damage is done. It's already done. I've lived my life without a father, even though if I had one, you know. Was married without both my parents there. I was just alone. I had my children without my parents. There's, you know, it's just, it's the damage has been done so severely that, you know, and to this day, he's like, you know, you don't have any proof. You don't have, you know, all this stuff. And so he doesn't feel bad about what he did. He's still, you know, acting like he hasn't done anything. And he did not only do it to me, he's done it to others.
Christian organization needs to respond to an abuser or a sex offender, number one, by reporting it to the law. In the United States, it is a felony in all 50 states. And it's interesting to me that churches often think that they can handle such a felon themselves. But if the person had murdered somebody, they would know better. And so we need to, first of all, bring in those
Instead, they murder our souls, basically, is what they do.
organizations and institutions and legal systems and everything else that know how to respond to abuse. It is very rare for a sex offender to have only one victim. And if you read about sex offenders and hear their stories, some of whom have been interviewed in prison after, it doesn't really matter when they tell the truth because they're already there for life, many of them have anywhere from 40 to hundreds of victims. And many of them say they go to churches on purpose because churches are easy to fool, because they often want to believe the best about people. And if you go in and offer your service and you help the elderly and you help young people, particularly the young people that people don't know how to handle, nobody will look. And if somebody comes forward and says you've been an abuser, nobody will believe the child. So
Yeah, nobody will believe the child. That's exactly, you know, what it is. Like, uh, like that man is so good. How dare that child like accuse him of something like that? He's sitting there, hard-working man, taking care of his family. How dare that little kid? You know, get away from that kid. You know, that kid is trouble. So that's what my dad told me that they said about us because I said, I, what is that called? I recanted and said he didn't do it because I didn't want to feel guilty about him being in prison. but I was so young when all this happened. Now I regret it. I want him to be in. I wish he was in prison. He deserves to be in prison. He's not only ruined my life, he's ruined other lives, and he's still playing his little games. The narcissistic little games that he plays. What I pray for him, but he's not repentant. I don't, I see where he's going. But anyway, okay, so yeah, that's basically all that I wanted to do, you guys. I wanted to do it this way so it'll be a little bit different, and it's not like, just somebody's just trying to have people understand the magnitude of this, but instead, let's get a professional in here sharing some insights, because she's been doing it for so long. So she knows exactly what she's talking about, and that's why I lean towards her. And she has some other great videos too that will help the victims, and also people who care about the victims, how to go about um, walking alongside, and just being a support system in those people's lives. So I think that this is a good way to go about doing this. So, all right, guys. So if nobody's told you today, you're beautiful. So rise, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Let me figure out how to turn this off. Sorry for the little resolution.